What on earth can you learn when you start doing voice work? So today I'm going to give just 25 of the myriad of different topics and things that you can start doing in your voice once you start the path of doing voice work. So if you don't know me, I'm Alex. I'm a voice coach. I also sort of study voice and neurodivergent masking in research, and I run a program called Voice Lab, and it's a bit of an odd program in that it's just like me. I'm an odd person, and in that it's a bit of a choose your own adventure. And there's a reason for that, is that everyone's starting from a different place with their voice, but everyone's also got these different goals. And sometimes so last time I ran it, for example, I gave this list of possible directions for the people to see what was possible, and they were just like, wow! Like I had no idea that there was so many different ways you could go when you start learning about your voice. So today I'm going to do a massively fast, quick rundown of those 25 different topics. If you're interested in voice, sign up, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell icon, shout that you like voice out the window and see if the passerby hears you. That was random, as many of the things that I say are, but I'm not going to beat around the bush because this is a quick video, and there are just not a quick video, but there are 25 things. So here we go. Dun, 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 dun. Number one, speaking versus singing. A lot of voice teachers are singing teachers. I'm not a singing teacher, but I know how to sing. And there are some things you can take from the singing voice to put it into the speaking voice, and vice versa. So that's a topic. Could be a whole course. Is the thing. Borrowing voices. This is one of my favorite techniques. It's not even a technique. It's a whole field of study. It's going out into the world and going, I like that voice. I'm going to learn it and make it my own. And there are many reasons you might do that. For like self-authenticity reasons, you'd be like, I want to get more of that person. Also for characters, if you're an actor, blah, 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 blah. Many reasons. On to number three. Beatboxing and scatting. Scatting is singing. And this is also to do with the voice, and it's completely different from accents and all of the things you might think about with voices, but also quite useful for accent learning. They all sort of go knit together, but that is the thing. Emotion in the voice. This is something I've just in the past week completed a certificate in teaching emotion in the voice. I'm greatly passionate about emotion and the voice, and there are so many things. You could run multiple courses on this, but this is the thing. Number five, just ran a workshop on this, in fact, voice for improv. With improv, there are some differences from, for example, being an actor. With an actor, you know what you're going to say. You've got your script. With improv, you might just come up with a character off the fly, or indeed on the fly. The fly is everywhere. You get out, you need to put on a character voice quickly, easily. Maybe it's recognizable as an accent. There are slightly different ways of doing that. Voice for improv. We're only at number 6. Authenticity of voice in life. This is something, I mean, we don't like the word we. Who are we? I'm just, me, don't like the word authenticity. No, there is actually research into what authenticity means. So I'm saying it with a very distinct meaning. But showing up as yourself in life, which means removing a lot of the kind of cultural conditioning and choosing the bits that actually serve you. This is something, again, massively passionate about, and this is a whole different direction of voice, away from things like acting. Vocal status. How are you coming across in terms of status, in terms of how people see you? There are particular, if you've got a little, I mean, in improv, for example, you might have little characters like this, sorry master, who will have a very different status from the person who walks around like this, you know. And this can apply in life as well, and there are sort of vocal habits that we have that affect our status. It's a whole avenue of study. Vocal power. Can you be heard across a room, across a field, from one Himalayan mountain to another? If you do yodeling, that's a whole other topic, actually. I do yodeling. I suppose that could come under the beatboxing and scatting, except it's also different. Vocal power, absolutely. this is a particular sort of band of techniques that I tend to incorporate into things. It's not a whole voice course in itself, but I have done a voice course, or attended a voice course, which was entirely this animal and element work for the voice. So this is like borrowing a character, borrowing a voice, but you're borrowing it from like stuff in the world, and borrowing it from animals. Let's move it on to number 10. Big important one, vocal health. How can you use your voice in a healthy way? This is often number one. This is sometimes all that people think that vocal voice is, and there's a reason for that. It's very important. If you haven't got vocal health down, you do all these other things with your voice, and then you destroy your voice. So it needs to underpin all the other training, but it is also it's a track in itself, actually, a learning track. Accurate impressions and accents, particularly useful if you are an actor, if you're taking on, an impression of a real living or dead person, or another character, and you don't just want to like be sort of slightly recognizable. You want it to be like really, really, really accurate. Maybe you're going to learn an accent for a part, right? I don't know how accurate this is. I think it's maybe Northern Ireland, but I'm not now. But it's like you need the skills to be able to like piece together something that's like really, really accurate. So impressions and accurates. Voice survival for long runs. I have a program for this as well. And this is, particularly if you're a comedian or something, and you're going into a fringe performance or a touring performance as an actor or something, it's like vocal stamina as an athlete. We call people vocal athletes. So you're having to sustain a particular voice use over multiple weeks, usually, sometimes in harsh conditions. So this is another track that voice learning can go down. Aging and the voice. There are two ways of this. There is how does your voice age as you age as a person, but there's also how do you make a character sound a little bit older if you need to have them to be old in acting or in an improv scene? What are the things you can do? And I've actually got a whole process for doing that. Number 14, storytelling and narration, telling good stories. I'm going to go fast because we've going through these fast, but there's a whole load of things there. How do you create your nice narrator voice? How do you change your voice for different characters without like getting completely stuck in the acting part of it and lose the story? Stuff like that. There's a whole storytelling track. Stage voice versus film voice. Also useful for actors, usually, that one. If you're moving from the stage and going onto the film, you need to change, and vice versa. Number 16, I also have a certificate in this. I'm very passionate about this. Gender-affirming voice work. There's a great amount of research in this. I've started looking into that. And this is about, you're a person and you feel like your voice that you have, either through physiology or its cultural influences that have affected the voice you have, they don't match who you authentically feel like you are. And there's a bunch of like very good voice work from that. So that's a whole track in itself, which I think is related to authenticity in the voice, very, very much so. But yes, I'm going to do more of that. There is 17 sound effects. This is a very. I just realised I reached 17 and there's 25 of these. Sound effects is like non-voice sounds. So if you're something, these sort of things. If you're doing improv, it's related to beatboxing as well. There's these sort of like percussive sounds with your voice, but using them to build an image. Will I survive throughout this video? I don't know. Oof, extreme vocal effects. Again, I've taken a bit of, I don't have a certificate in this, but there's a bit, I've started doing some training in this, and this is about making sounds like the metal voice, metal singers. And there are healthy ways and not so healthy ways. That was not so healthy way to do it. And this is using your voice in a way that is sort of it's sort of moving against vocal health, but it isn't, because you're doing it in such a way that, or vocal health foundations, you're doing it in such a way that it is actually sustainable and healthy. So healthiness in making what sound like unhealthy sounds. My goodness, Grummalot and Gibberish. Probably is good with us when you're good if this no one you only had you near another Thelios and button to do which is the use of nonsense speak. So this is used a lot in clowning, it's used a lot in improvisation, and it's useful for like taking away the words and going into scenes and being able to speak in nonsense, but in a way sometimes that sounds like a particular accent. You know, you might have a French Grummalot. Stereotypical French Grummalot. That was terrible. There we go. We're going so fast. My goodness. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Come on. Energy management. Oof. I'm also very passionate about energy management as someone who, as you can see, I throw myself into things and then get entirely burnt out. So this is something that I sort of underline a lot of things, a lot of different tracks, but it is actually an extremely important one, and it's a whole voice training track in itself. Number 21, vocal anatomy. My goodness, it's taken us till 21 to get to know vocal anatomy. Vocal anatomy is what you would think as a 101, and it often is. You know, you teach a bit of anatomy, but I've found that actually going into these different tracks and teaching people things practically first, and then going, by the way, this is what's happening with the voice, this is this, I find that's more helpful sometimes than going in with like a 3-day training that's just about bones and anatomy and muscles and things. Fascinating though it is, but it's a whole learning track in itself. And I'm a voice geek. I'm dying here. I'm a voice geek, and I love this stuff. But it's a whole. There's a whole load of stuff about anatomy. There's a whole lot we don't know as well. It's that people are still debating things in the research. Amazing. There's number 22, voiceovers and audiobooks. A bit like storytelling and narration, but with storytelling, you might be doing it in person. With things like voiceovers and audiobooks, you're also using microphone technique. It's slightly different, but similar. And this is, like I said, there's a whole learning track of voice with many options. Specific accents courses. So maybe you want to learn how to learn accents, sure. But maybe you want to learn a specific accent really, really deeply, and this is something, you know, you can go really deep on an accent and become a complete expert in all of the accents in a tiny little area, perhaps, which would be useful if you're doing like a production of a show where everyone speaks in the same but similar accents. 2 more. We're almost there. Business voice personas. What the hell? This is a whole thing that I did before I started to teach. Before I became a clown and started teaching actors and things, I went into the world of business, and came up with this sort of way of teaching how to come up with a version of yourself that works well in networking events, for example, or giving presentations. It's kind of intentionally creating a character, but it's you. But someone who can like operate well in a networking environment, which me, as a neurodivergent person who went into business networking, I was like overwhelmed, you know. So I had to create this character who would like function for the course of an entire 2-day conference, for example. Yes, so that's the whole thing, whole track, business. And finally, my goodness, 25. You see there are more, but this is just a list. The voice and neurodivergent masking, my actual area of research at the moment, and this is about the like how my brain's just it's coming out my ears. Yeah, it's about how we kind of create versions of ourselves in order to be able to fit in for safety purposes, but maybe they don't serve us, you know. So like with the business one, you know, you might go out and actually create that, and you might only use that mask sometimes. But if you're doing it unintentionally, you might be doing loads of stuff with your voice. This is what my research is looking into, to cover yourself up almost. And so there's a whole interaction with that. And there's also beautiful, wonderful interactions in terms of how you teach voice, in terms of neurodivergence and stuff, which I'm also extremely passionate about. All of this. Anyway, I'm exhausted. I was exhausted anyway. And then I did this. Madness. Energy management, Alex. Anyway, that is 25 different tracks of things you could start learning once you've started this path of learning to use your voice. And there are more. I discover things all the time. And then I go, well, I should make a course on that. So that's the reason why when I run Voice Lab, and I will be running Voice Lab at some point in the new year. So if you're interested in finding out when that happens, I will be running the next one at some point. There's a list. No, there's a list. Yeah, there's a wait list where I can tell you information, so you can sign up for that in the description. That's the word for it. Yeah. But anyway, what? Yes. So yes, that's the reason that there's different tracks. It's part of it is because everyone comes into voice and they go, I want to do this with my voice, and you're like, okay, well that's like that's for this purpose or whatever, but that incorporates bits of this, so you kind of put together pieces. This is how it works as teaching for people, so that everyone is like working together on the course, but also they've all each got their own kind of things that they're personally trying to reach with their voice, which I think is the most useful. But there you go. Anyway, that was intense. I shall never make a list of 25 things ever again. That was too many things. But in any case, have a brilliant day. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bubble, hit the, I don't know, hit subscribe, like, bell, wave at a passerby and tell them they look beautiful. Don't tell them they look beautiful. That might be weird. Just tell them, have a nice day. I'm so tired. Anyway, wonderful. Have a great. Goodbye.